introduce Dr. Nally. Dr. Donna Nally is the Program Director for English at South University Online Program. Dr. Nally earned her BA and MA in English from the University of North Carolina, Charlotte, and her PhD in American Literature from the University of South Carolina. Her dissertation focused on the Garden of Ruin in the American novel. Dr. Nally has taught at the college level since 1983, and she has published and presented over the years in the areas of literature, writing, and education. Recent presentations include talks on first-year composition strategies, learning dynamics in the online classroom, working with at-risk students, and belonging and growth mindset. From 1997 to 2005, she served as the Director of Publications for the SERVE Center, an education research organization at the University of North Carolina at Greensboro. There, she managed a group of writers, editors, and graphic designers and published books, magazines, websites, and other materials disseminating information on education research. Dr. Nally resides in St. John's, Florida with her 2 children, and she enjoys reading, creative writing, and photography. Thank you very much for joining us this evening, Dr. Nally, and I will now turn the controls over to you.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Great. And can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Excellent. So thank you again. It's a pleasure to be here with you and with our listening audience. This session will explore the question, what is critical thinking and how does it apply to college students today? College students often hear that term critical thinking, but they may not have a clear sense of its meaning and relevance. In fact, those of you listening now may be wondering whether this topic has any relevance for you personally. You may be afraid that this will be a boring presentation or that it might not apply to your life and interests. So to help you get started thinking about the topic, let me ask you 3 questions. So question number 1, how do you react in a situation in which you have a different opinion on an important topic from someone else? So your answer to this question might change depending on whether the topic has great meaning for you, on whether the other person is a stranger, a mere acquaintance, a colleague, a close friend, or a relative. What if the other person is someone that you want to impress? What if it's someone who always seems to make you angry and uncomfortable? Question number 2. Have you noticed people behaving badly online and in person over the past few months, especially over the presidential race? Unless you've been living under a rock without internet, I bet you've seen more than one instance of this behavior. And my third question, question number 3, have you seen individuals on social media who are trying to have a civilized debate only to be derailed by an internet troll? Isn't that irritating when someone just wants to get a rise out of someone else and that person doesn't care about the substance of the debate? If you're honest, many of you just remembered an uncomfortable exchange you witnessed or were a part of online. It's hard not to have noticed the heated arguments and rampant unfriending on social media that has gone on due to these differences of opinion. Some have managed to stay quiet and not share an opinion, but many others have shared their thoughts and found themselves not in a sensible debate, but in a name-calling, mudslinging mess, wondering what on earth just happened here. So recently I was talking with a friend who's an author. Her name's Heather Blair. And she remarked, "It is unbelievable how shallow the general population's thinking has become. The ability to see an argument from all sides and contemplate its repercussions has been replaced by becoming irrationally offended and randomly spouting nonsensical rage that has nothing to do with the original point? Is intellectual reasoning becoming a thing of the past, replaced by 140-character tweets, 10-second GIFs, and inane emoticons? She was talking about the ability to think critically, a step that is necessary before a person can make a judgment and share that judgment about something. So let's take a look at this word critical. Oh my gosh, when you hear the word critical, you might first think of somebody who is very disapproving, like this lady on the slide. She just looks like she's about to criticize someone, say something negative and unfavorable and fault-finding. So again, many people think of that first definition that's listed here on the screen of disapproving comments or judgments and may imagine someone who finds fault with people, items, or situations, like this lady who appears to have been sucking on a lemon. However, there are actually several definitions, and I think it helps us to look more specifically at the second definition on the slide today. When the word critical is combined with the word thinking, the connotation changes to mean making skillful judgments. And that more closely aligns with the second meaning listed, quote, involving an analysis of the merits and faults of something, often writing, music, or art. An analysis, let's keep that in mind. Thus, the dictionary definition describes critical thinking as disciplined thinking that is clear, rational, open-minded, and informed by evidence. I want you to notice that wording from that definition. Disciplined, clear, rational, open-minded, informed. Someone who is disciplined has control over him or herself. That person will choose to use the intellect over the emotions. Thinking that is clear and rational is not muddied by prejudices or emotional responses. One cannot allow past opinions, peer pressure, rumors to cloud one's judgment. To be open-minded is to consider others' perspectives. An open-minded person will try to see the argument or a piece of writing or a work of art from someone else's viewpoint. Even if it does not affect his or her own opinion in the end, it helps to be able to see something from all perspectives. And finally, to be informed is essential. One must know the facts to choose an opinion. This person will strive to learn the facts, the history, and the context. Critical thinking refers to making reasoned, logical judgments after raising questions, doing research, considering various arguments and viewpoints, and coming to an informed conclusion. Notice all the steps there. Critical thinking means withholding judgment until a person has reviewed all of the available information. It does not mean moving quickly to a conclusion as a result of prejudices, past opinions, peer pressure, or inadequate information. I love this quote. Mark Twain once said, "What gets us into trouble is not what we don't know, it's what we know for sure that just ain't so." Ask yourself, it flipped ahead. Ask yourself, what do you know for sure that just ain't so? Critical thinking requires problem solving, creative thinking, and communication. These are things you do in your classes on a daily basis. So here's the application. When you come to a discussion assignment in one of your classes, you pause and consider the question posed to you. You read the lectures and the assignments, and you research to become better informed. You ask questions of yourself and others. You have to solve problems. You have to consider other people's opinions and perspectives. You have to think creatively and clearly before you come to an informed conclusion. Once you have done all these steps, you are then ready to communicate your stance effectively. So I challenge you to approach your classes and learning with a sense of curiosity and openness and a spirit of inquiry. And I want to leave you with these thoughts. 3 quotes. Education's purpose is to replace an empty mind with an open one. The aim of education should be to teach us rather how to think than what to think. And the whole purpose of education is to turn mirrors into windows. Thank you very much. And now we're going to take a moment for you to type in any questions you might have or insights and ideas you would like to share. You may put them in the questions area. Kim, are you there? I don't hear you talking.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, good. We have a couple of comments and a question. So the first comment is thank you and fantastic presentation. And then the question is, can't and shouldn't critical thinking be applied when considering politics as well?
Yes, absolutely. It is important to research the stances of the political leaders you're considering electing and ask informed questions and talk to other people about their positions, understand their perspectives before making a decision of your own from an informed viewpoint. Thank you for that question.
We have any other questions? Does anybody have any examples on how they've applied critical thinking? Or any comments on Dr. Nally's presentation? I thought it was very timely from what we're all experiencing now in our society, especially after the election. One student says, do you have any advice to take for test-taking skills?
Test-taking skills?
Mm-hmm.
I guess my advice would be to take your time. And I know that most people will look at a test before they get started, review the whole thing to kind of get a sense of how long it is, how many questions are involved, how much discussion and that sort of thing. and then take it slowly and focus on each question. Really understand that question. I've seen students get tripped up by not answering a question in the way that it was posed. So, you know, the test asks you a question, but then you go off on a tangent and you offer some different kind of response, or you talk about your own situation. Be sure that you're answering the question as posed, I would say.
Okay. And then how can you apply critical thinking when applying for a job?
Well, you certainly want to be informed about the position that you're applying for. You want to learn about the company, so you want to use those research skills to learn as much as you can about the organization. You know, you are interviewing them as much as they are interviewing you. Do you want to work there? You need to find out if the position is going to be right for you, if the climate and the culture is going to be good as well. So you're going to research ahead of time to learn as much as you can, and you can prepare some questions that you can ask the interviewers to help you better understand whether you're actually interested in that particular position. Those are great questions.
I think too, and we're going to talk about the Badgefolio opportunity shortly, but in applying for jobs, my experience has been you really want to know yourself as well. What are your strengths and weaknesses to be able to clearly describe them or make sure that you're a good fit for the position that you're applying for.
Excellent addition. Yes, I would agree with you.
Okay, another comment. From a nurse's standpoint, we are taught to think critically, but a lot of time we don't use our better judgment. What would be a good way to use our critical thinking when trying to decide what's best for the patient?
I think that's a great question, and I'm envisioning a scenario as you ask that question. I can imagine how emotional and difficult it can be, especially like in an emergency room or in ICU or in a pediatrician's office as a small child comes in who's been hit by a car. You know, immediately the adrenaline is kicking in and the emotions are kicking in, and it's very important to then rely on your training and your experience to take on a cool, calm, intellectual approach, assess the situation, determine what needs to be done, how can you help the other team members dealing with the crisis, put aside any kinds of prejudices, previous thoughts about things, whatever is going to emotionally cloud your judgment, and deal with the situation at hand. Maybe, it looks to you like child abuse, that maybe the father who's brought this child in maybe has caused the situation. That's not for you to decide. That's something for, legal people to decide. Set aside that prejudice, focus on the child, focus on the patient, assess and act appropriately. That would be my thought. Now, I'm not a nursing person, but that would be, the kind of scenarios that I would envision. Kim, do you have other thoughts on that?
I just kind of have a personal experience. My father was a life flight pilot, and when they would get calls in to go out and fly, they were never told what the type of accident it was or what type of patient it was, whether it was a child or an elderly person, because, he may use poor judgment in making a decision to go out on a flight that may be unsafe based on the type of patient that they were experiencing. So if you use maybe that same kind of mindset that you're going to, you're going to do what best in the situation, no matter, use the foundation that you were taught and that you think is best before you start getting your biases and your preconceived notions and those types of things into play with any situation.
That's a fantastic example. Thank you for adding that.
We have another comment that says, I feel critical thinking takes a conscious effort to slow down and think before coming to a conclusion. I find this hard with online test taking only allowing 2 minutes to answer.
That's a good comment.
Yeah, the only thing that comes to my mind is in that particular situation, the better prepared you are, the better off you're going to be, is of course my first thought. And then my second thought is, I've always been taught your first gut instinct is what you should go with. It's not guaranteed that it's always going to be right, but if you're prepared beforehand, don't start second guessing yourself when you're making those decisions on those questions.
I'd say that's great advice.
Okay, next one is kind of related to the medical situation. If you are emotional about a topic, how do you respond in a critical thinking way? And I think we kind of covered that, with the last one. I know it's hard to put your emotions to the side, but you have to, practice your profession in the best way that you know how, making the best decisions for that situation.
Right. It really helps to put yourself in other people's shoes and try to imagine the argument from their perspective, and then that makes you better able to come back from points that they might have and help them to see it from your point of view. Because I think any kind of reasonable discussion is all about looking at the different angles of something, and it's not always about trying to convince somebody else to change an opinion, but more to help them to accept that your stance is valid.
Right, and that leads right into this next comment, really, which I've run into quite a few times. It's a difficult situation, but the student says, when in an online class, oftentimes you will see brief answers to a discussion question that are not cited. In our classes, we are required to post discussion responses. In a situation like this, what would you suggest is the best way to apply critical thinking in a productive response without coming off as teachy? Of course, the goal is never to offend. And I think, that question can apply to many different situations, just even critical thinking with all of the, I know a lot of people's emotions are really high right now with the political situation, and so how do we have this conversation with somebody to say, what is your true argument, and how do we better approach this situation, or, to have them have maybe a different perspective on things?
Yeah, that's a great question. I do see those kinds of situations, and I see students, often the better prepared student, the student who's spent more time thinking about the topic and maybe has the better developed response, would be uncomfortable looking at a student who's put in, say, minimal effort and maybe hasn't really thought clearly and maybe has some holes in the argument or whatever. And I like that the person who asked that question was sensitive and self-aware and saying, I don't want to come across as being teachy or whatever, allowing the instructor to kind of help with that kind of aspect. But the thing is that I think that questions are a great way for a student to draw out that student who maybe hasn't done enough thinking on the topic. I think that a thoughtful question can really advance meaningful conversation in the classroom. And so, maybe something that's well crafted to get that other student thinking might just get that student who's not really joined the discussion fully to maybe get interested and become a more, interested participant in the discussion.
Oh, very good. Is there a time when you can combine critical thinking with emotion?
What do you think, Kim?
My experience has been, and it's a really fascinating topic to look at emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is being aware of your own emotions in a situation. So if you are, if you're in the middle of an argument, or if you're at work and your supervisor approaches you about something that maybe wasn't even, your fault, are you aware of your emotions and first of all, what is causing those emotions? So before you act, I think it's important to get your emotions in check so that you can think rationally and then take care of the situation. Another part of emotional intelligence is being aware of others' emotions. So if, again, maybe in a hospital situation, you're going to deal with patients, you're going to deal with family members that are very upset, their emotions are high. Some people in that situation may react with the same type of emotions. If you're the caregiver and your emotions escalate, you're probably not going to be able to effectively think critically. So you want to be able to be aware of their emotions, what's causing their emotions, and then how do you handle your emotions in order to calm down the situation and think critically to solve the problem. So, I think emotions do go hand in hand, but being able to recognize those emotions and control them to the best of your ability before you act. They tell us that all the time in an online environment because we use a lot of text. We email a lot. If we send out an email in the heat of anger, it's probably not going to go over so well. So a lot of times we have to do exactly that. We have to recognize what it is that's causing us to be upset and understand why the person maybe on the other end is upset, and then calm down before we send something that may be inappropriate or that may get us in hot water. So, I think you will always be dealing with the emotions, but knowing to recognize them and handle them is the most important thing.
I think it's fantastic that you brought the emotional intelligence piece into that, and I like so many pieces of your answer. I would say that, particularly in that is that we're not robots and we can't completely cut off our emotions. So how do we use them? Like you were saying, how do you use that emotional intelligence? How do you diffuse a situation in which people are spinning out of control? And you have to reflect. You have to be like a mirror and reflect a sense of calmness and control and a reassuring kind of approach. So, I really see that. I think that was a good response.
Well, thank you. And we have one other comment, and then we'll move on to my couple of slides that I have to talk about the badge folio. But this one is, I agree with that question because it seems like when you start testing, then everything you know goes out the window. So how under pressure are you able to get yourself together and think about what steps you need to take?
I just think that preparation is the key. I remember back when I was in college just going over and over my notes to the point that when I would go into the test, I would literally see the notes in my mind's eye. And, having a mindset, like a feeling that you're going to succeed and that you can handle it. I think that's an important piece too. So, the preparation and the self-talk, just being ready for those tests. It sounds like that's a real concern of our audience tonight, Kim.
Yes, I think so too. And I am getting some feedback that my mic is real low, and I apologize for that. I'm not sure how to fix it. I did raise the volume a little bit. Is that any better? Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah. Okay. You were a little quiet, but I can hear you now.
Okay, I'm trying to talk as loud as I can without interrupting people around me.
Right.
But okay, so, and we had one other comment that said, I would think we need to take a breath and think about the subject, then we can focus on what is best. And I think that applies also to the test taking. Some people have test anxiety. It's just, it's like getting up on stage and speaking in front of an audience. You know, everybody just kind of, some people just kind of panic, and it's like you have that, your brain just goes blank. So maybe practicing some type of stress minimizers right before you take the test, taking some very deep breaths, just trying to clear your mind, telling yourself you got this, you're well prepared, because I think really some of that is just anxiety. And I know, and unfortunately, sometimes the tests are timed, so when you sit down to start taking them, you don't have time to calm yourself, but try doing some pre-preparation anxiety, you know, diminishers, and see if that helps.
Okay, are you ready to move forward with your badge folio slides?
Sure.
Okay.
So as I mentioned in the beginning of this presentation, this is part of the QEP Keeping It Real Classroom to Career series. Now that you've attended this event, you can earn a badge in the Career Readiness Certification Badge Folio. All students have the opportunity to participate in the Career Readiness Certification Badge Folio program. Students can earn 11 virtual badges, as you see pictured here on the screen, by completing corresponding exercises. The exercises include a personality assessment, 3 career reflection badges that coordinate with career-related classroom assignments, 3 career experience badges, and these involve participation in career-related events, such as the one that you just participated in. 3 career planning badges, which are resume, career exploration, and networking, and finally a job search badge. So what can happen is you can now go to Career Readiness Badge Folio and complete a badge in here, and you can go ahead to the next slide. Once you complete one of the badges, you'll receive a pin in the mail as you complete each badge, signifying the accomplishment. You'll also receive a virtual badge on Connections if you have a profile on Connections. And upon completion of all 11 badges, students will receive a Career Readiness Certificate in the mail and recognition on the transcript of completing the program. You'll also have the opportunity to build an e-portfolio that you can send out to potential employers if you like. If you'd like to get started or want more information with this, please contact me, Kim Bevington, at kbevington@southuniversity.edu. My information is here on the slide. And if you take a look there, these are the skills that the Career Readiness Certification Program helps you to develop in addition to the coursework that you're currently taking part in. This program is voluntary. There's no fee for it. There's no requirement to complete the entire thing. You can just complete several pieces of it if you like. So it just, these are characteristics or traits that employers are looking for: the critical thinking, problem solving, oral and written communication, teamwork and collaboration, information technology, leadership, professional and work ethic, and career management. So all of these exercises and events that we're hosting, such as Dr. Nally's critical thinking presentation, are really helping. Our goal is to help you develop to transition smoothly into the workplace. So if you'd like to get started with that, just reach out to me. And I think that's it. Do we have any other questions or comments this evening before we close for the evening? Dr. Nellie has put up a slide with her contact information, and I think I speak on behalf of all attendees when I say thank you so much for providing this information and this presentation for us tonight. I think it was very, very good and very timely for us. And I'd like to thank all of our attendees. It's been great spending time with you this evening, and I hope everyone has a good evening. Dr. Nellie, would you like to close us out?
Thank you so much for having me and for the wonderful attentiveness of our audience and their thoughtful questions and feedback. I really enjoyed the discussion portion of the presentation. So thank you again for having me.
Thank you so much. And we've gotten a lot of thank yous back, and I think our students really appreciated it this evening. So everybody have a good evening. And like I said, the recording will go out to you. If you have any further questions or want to have further communication about this topic, please reach out to myself or Dr. Nellie. Have a good evening. I'm going to end the recording now.